So yesterday evening, our heater stopped working, and we investigated. It was just blowing white smoke out of the exhaust, and all the sounds are right. The fuel pump was running, the coolant motor was running, the blower motor was running, but it just didn't light, basically. This is pretty normal behavior when they get gummed up with residue inside, creosote and so forth. You need to take it apart and clean it up, which would be a real big ordeal. But lots of people suggest running kerosene through the heater regularly instead of diesel, because kerosene burns hotter and doesn't leave as much residue and stuff. And some people suggest even just doing that to see if it fixes the issue before you go taking it apart. Other people even suggested just disconnecting the fuel pump, undisconnect the line from the actual heater, and pump that into a can while it's starting up, so it starts up with no fresh fuel being put in, and that'll burn off the old fuel. And so we tried that for probably 8 or 9 start attempts. When we reconnected the fuel line, turned it back on, didn't start. We decided to try the kerosene idea. So while I was working today, Christine went and got us some kerosene, and I'm gonna disconnect the diesel tank and connect this line to the pump and run it on kerosene. So my plan is to just leave the jug where it is. This hose should be long enough to run down into the transom locker there where the heater and fuel pump's actually located. And that way we don't have to worry about accidentally spilling kerosene in the middle of our transom locker. Should be good to go. So it's a bit of a tight space in here, but here's the actual diesel heater. There's the burn chamber here. It goes to a heat exchanger over here. That's the water pump, pumps water through. This is the air intake on this black hose, and that's the exhaust. And then down here we have the fuel pump, and this is a line going to a regulator, and then off to the actual diesel filter in the engine room. So I'm going to disconnect the fuel pump here and connect my temporary line to the kerosene. Whew. There we go. Let's go grab the other line. I don't know if I have the angle right on that, but that should keep this well away from the exhaust for this temporary measure. So we run it out to the kerosene tank. Okay, we have our fuel line in the kerosene jug here. I thought about priming the fuel line, making sure it's full of fuel first, but I think it's actually better if we don't, and the first time we start it up, it'll probably not get any kerosene into it, so it'll hopefully burn off any remaining diesel that's left before it starts pumping the kerosene. So let's go turn it on. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's definitely running. The pump's running at full speed now. We're burning kerosene.
Unfortunately, while we were running the kerosene, we ended up pumping about 5 gallons of diesel into the bilge. We immediately took Greco outside away from the fumes and pumped the bilge diesel into buckets. We used up the last of our water as we tried to pump soap, vinegar, and water to flush the bilge. Cold night without heat and the windows open for ventilation. We made Greco a hot water bottle and used the last of our power to run a mini heater for his cage. Running very low on resources, we had no choice but to brave the rain and head to the fuel dock. As we were at the fuel dock, we were able to dispose of the first batch of our bilge diesel.
And cleaning the diesel out of the bilge. So I put a lot of soap in there earlier and I scrubbed it around with the scrub brush, and now I'm sponging it out because I think that when we go to put our cleaner through, it'll be more concentrated if we get most of this out first, and then it'll not smell, hopefully. Fingers crossed. But this bilge just keeps filling up. Every time I take a spongeful out, a new spongeful comes in. So it might take a while.
Today we start an epic battle against diesel fumes. We are armed with soap, lemon juice, and baking soda.
All right.
So the next time we're upgrading a shower head or our faucet, which is actually broken, it doesn't work in its spray mode, we're definitely getting a longer hose.
Just like opening the bottle.
Right, ready? So today in the kitchen,
You're making a big batch of something.
lemony fresh.
Before anyone calls us out, this electrical cable here is actually disconnected. It just happens to be moved yet. It's okay to forget it. This little knob here is what's stopping the hose from going out further, and there's actually a lot more slack. So by loosening these screws, you can slide this much further along the hose. You get way more slack out. The instant upgrade.
Now that the bilge is full of our cleaning solution, it's time to agitate. This beautiful snow globe is a side effect of blowing baking soda into the places we can't reach in the bilge.
During the whole ordeal with dealing with the diesel spill, I touch my hand over here because here's the buckets of diesel-y bilge water that we still need to dispose of. During that whole ordeal, we did run our heater off kerosene for over a day, and after that we switched it back to diesel, and it ran fine for a day, but the heater does an automatic cycle off and on again every 20 hours if it's on low, and pretty much around the 20-hour mark it stopped again. So I suspect it turned off and then it wouldn't restart while running on diesel. We're probably going to have to pull it apart and clean it, but in order to do that we need to get the right gaskets, because from what we've read online and looking at some YouTube videos, the gaskets for the burner, they just fall apart when you take it apart, apparently. So we've ordered some replacements for those. But in the meantime, we're going to try getting it running on kerosene again, because it definitely seemed to start better on kerosene previously. At least, hopefully we can get it running until those parts arrive and I can take the heater completely apart and clean it real good. Diesely bilge water. Looks real gross. 30 knots, 31 knots. This little houseboat over there just lost their lawn furniture from the top of their boat. They managed to save the surfboard and some other piece, but I think they're actually dragging right now. Whitecaps in the creek. We just hit 35 knots a moment ago. Died off slightly. Most of the big whitecaps disappeared, but now it's raining real good. I think that boat in front of us might be getting closer. Seems to have stopped dragging. Oh, maybe I spoke too soon. So we had some excitement. Our neighbor came to visit. So, we've got a new neighbor. Actually thinking I'm gonna go check the fenders again. So I poked my head out to check on things, and I think Warlock is actually getting closer to us.
So we are dragging anchor. We are dragging anchor, but we are using engines to maintain our position. Just to inform you. Over. Use your engines. Drop the second anchor if you need to, and have your agent call for a pilot. Over.
A bit of excitement. The line that we had our bows connected to between the boat that washed up on us and ourselves snapped. So we were just being held on by the sort of midline, stern line, twisting out and getting caught. I think it might have been worse, but we actually have our own anchor out. So that our own anchor caught our bow. So I started the engine, just turned us back into them, and we put a new line on. So after all that storm, it suddenly got real calm. It's less than 5 knots. Like an hour ago, we were above 30 knots. And it happened real sudden. Like, wind was making tons of noise, and within like a couple of minutes, it got real quiet. And unfortunately, we switched directions, but we're still really close to this boat here, which suggests maybe our anchors are tangled in a bad way. We go forward and have a look. Maybe I need to wake up our neighbors so we can disentangle ourselves. Maybe since I've got the electric winds, why don't we just pick up my anchor and see what happens if it brings your anchor up? Like if we're just on standby, and if nothing's tangled, I'll just go anchor further down that way. And but if you just wait on standby in case I do drag up your anchor. Yeah, we definitely crossed there.
Oh yeah.
But
oh, that looks like just that little one. So hold on. Hey, Kaya.
well, I think it looks like my chain might just slide up your rope. If we haven't actually hooked the anchor, then my chain will probably just slide up and we can unhook it.
That's true. I also just have this line really handy. Like I could almost just undo it, pass it over to you, and like or put it in my dinghy and just pull it over to the side. And we just
Sure. What?
really don't
Just
run
pass it over to me.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, I think that's the most mud I've ever seen on our anchor. Classic mistake, forgetting to bring in the dinghy.
If you liked this video, hit the thumbs up. And if you want to join us on the next adventure, hit subscribe.